It's the Dev Friday Show with Mark and Tim.
I mean, it feels like there's some new peacefulness that has descended upon the world, at least as far as I can tell, because Twitter apparently right now is read-only. I'm trying to post on Twitter and I can't, so I have to imagine that there are less arguments, less people yelling at each other about how wrong each other is, and just generally more peaceful. Is that how you're feeling today, Mark?
Maybe that's it. I'm actually feeling pretty good today. I went to bed kind of upset because I got an email from my lawyer, but we won't get into that.
I mean, that's the title of today's episode, though. Should have been a lawyer.
But then today I've actually been at home thinking about projects, what I'm going to be working on, and feeling a little bit at peace when I'm at my home office. And maybe that is because Twitter went offline. I was able to get a few tweets in this morning.
Offline.
Well,
like, I can see
read
Twitter.
Only.
Right,
yes.
But it is completely read only, and I don't know exactly what to do about that because I was trying to reply to your tweets because you said you forgot how therapeutic 3D modeling can be and how much you love Blender. I was like, I thought that was the Dev Friday show. Oh, the tweet was sent, guys. It might be back online.
So is it back online just for our show? I think Twitter noticed that we were starting to go live, and they need to make sure that they provided the live stream for our show. I think
I mean, I think it's actually we're actually on Twitter. Who knows? This must be. Yeah. All right. Well, guess whatever benefit Twitter being down had to the general peaceful consciousness of our society as a whole is now gone. And we can apparently post to Twitter once more. So
So I have so much to talk to you about, Tim.
Well, okay, so a little bit behind the scenes, just so people know. We try to start this at 1 p.m. on Friday every week, and generally at 12:55, I am in a Slack channel asking Mark, "Are you gonna join us today?"
It's true.
So he was here at like, I want to say 12:50-ish. I was surprised. He popped up. I was still trying to figure out why I couldn't post to Twitter, and there he was. And so you're ultra prepared today.
I had that itch, that Dev Friday itch. I just had to get into it. You know what I mean?
Isn't there a cream for that, or some type of medicine to help take that away?
We better not become a medical advice show. That would be really, really bad. We delved into the cooking. But I think we should stay away from the health advice.
There's no. Oh my!
But
that opens so many doors of conversation that I don't think we should go down. Yeah, go ahead.
From things I've been thinking about, like with thinking about Chinese language machine learning, predictive typing, which I learned about this week, was kind of interesting.
Well, here's what I learned about this morning: that if you're concerned that AI is going to take over and destroy the world or anything like that, just try to get Google to play whatever album you want. It is so ridiculously hard
to play the album.
Yeah,
like Google Music. What do you mean by
yes? I try to tell. Like I use one of the Google Home devices. Like
okay, yeah.
I'm not going to say it because my phone's going to be like, "You talking to me?" But you're like, "Dearest Google, please play the album and say album name." And it's like, "Oh, okay, I'm playing something similar to that on YouTube." And I'm like, I didn't want a recording of somebody in a concert recording this song. I want the album. And like the I think it took me and my wife 3 different times, both of us trying to say different things to Google to get it just to do that thing. And I'm like, you know what? I think we're pretty safe.
I totally agree because Google sent me, because I'm a Google TV premium subscriber. I don't think I'm a Google YouTube premium subscriber. So they sent me one of those.
The TV stuff is surprisingly expensive. If you've looked at that,
the price goes up, and also we could talk about it too, how the price is going up for every subscription service. And I just got the notice.
Well, it's just the supply chain issues, Mark.
Amazon's raising the Amazon Prime, and then Netflix is raising their prices, and I'm like, all right, I need to start cutting back here. This is getting kind of crazy. The inflation, it's getting to me now.
Selling some of your action figures just to pay for your YouTube addiction.
No, they're safe behind me in locked cases. But from
IKEA.
But anyway, I was thinking about inflation's hitting us hard with like the streaming services down. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to start to cut back. But yeah, that's kind of crazy. But yeah, I had this exact same issue with the Google because I have one of those Google displays. It's like the small little video display with a speaker. I forget what it's called, but I actually have it in my bathroom. It's actually kind of nice because one of my morning
This
rituals.
is the one without the camera, I'm guessing. Then
I hope not. Or it is recording me every morning after I get out of the shower. I don't know.
They had 2 versions of that. There was one that had the
That's
camera.
a good
so you
point.
could do,
I didn't even
video
look at
calls,
that. Yeah.
And then there was one without a camera that was like you could receive video calls, and this is great for like the kitchen where you want to see a recipe
Yeah, I think
on the
it's
screen.
that one because they sent it to me pretty much for free. So I think it's the lower end, cheaper one, which doesn't have a camera. So I guess it feels somewhat safe putting
not
in
a
my
camera
bathroom.
that they told you about.
That's true. I know. Yeah, I don't trust anybody. But yeah, I've done the same thing, and I kind of had the exact same thought about asking them to play like music, a track, or it is nice. I do have it connected to my Spotify, so I say play the Spotify playlist. It does a pretty good job of that. If I can say my playlist correctly, it'll play.
That's right.
It'll play it. But the same thing, I did the same thing. You just given like an artist or a song or the thing. Yeah, it's not. And also just asking basic questions too. It's just, I think it has a long way to go, for really being.
But next year we're gonna have AI become sentient. That's whoever's saying whatever.
We're gonna plug it in our brains then, right?
Yeah. But it can't even figure out. Please play this album.
It's what's called exponential growth. At a moment, it's just gonna click on. It's just gonna get to the next level where it's just gonna be world changing.
Yeah, I've heard that exponential growth ring before, and I think it was a startup telling me about how their hockey stick potential. And I should just develop this website for free for them. Yeah. No, I remember that. They were going to give me stock, not now, but later when it went. Yeah. No, I've heard.
Well, it was interesting. I did find this. I always talk about how I find random stuff on YouTube because that is my one weakness of social networks that I still have.
That's the one weakness.
Besides occasional Twitter, but yeah, I totally gave up on Instagram, Facebook, unless I'm dragged into it by my family. It's like I totally got off those. But I find
Facebook interesting though. Now, just like as an aside here. Well, I've been
it's dying.
Is it?
Well, it took a big hit last. I think we kind of alluded to that last week. It kind of took a big hit because they actually admitted the fact that they're not growing, they're losing users, and they're losing. Oh no! Well, their stock went down 20%.
Oh,
they recovered a little bit, but I think it was like the biggest one-day crash of one company, like from a market value perspective.
And because they're so big to begin with, if you get 20%.
Yeah. So it was a lot of money. I think it was like they this what I don't know how you equate this, but what Mark Zuckerberg's lost I don't know 20 or I don't know,
right? Which is always
$20 billion or some crazy number in one day or something like that.
Yeah, which is also nice. But
it was the fact that they admitted the fact that they're losing subscribers or active users. That's decreasing each month, and also losing ad revenue. So
what's the next obvious thing someone's going to say?
But then they have Meta. Meta's going to save them.
That there's fake accounts on Twitter. Can you imagine if Twitter was like, oh, and by the way, we just realized that
that was this
50% of our accounts aren't actually real.
Yeah, and Twitter admitted the same thing. Did they? Not. I don't think not as much. They didn't admit that they're losing, but the same, pretty much kind of equivalent. We're like, I think we're not really growing. We're losing little ad dollars here and there. We still made a profit, but the future may not be as bright. And they had to kind of
for those companies
admit that. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting.
Generally speaking, I feel like the brightness of the future in general may be inversely proportional to anyway. But no, for Facebook, there's a couple things that I'm interested in getting, and the groups around these products are on Facebook, and it's there's other forum software, right? I mean, we know that. We've both of us have lived on the internet long enough to probably have tried to manage some weird open source forum for some group or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's just so natural to coalesce around Facebook and Facebook groups because, everybody has that account already. And it's not like I have to sign up for some other place. So I totally get the platform draw of these things. And from a social standpoint, I rarely post on Facebook. But when it comes to I'm looking for a freezer, right? So I'm going to be looking at Facebook Marketplace probably more than a Craigslist. That's where I might have gone before. Because Craigslist has that nice warm, you could buy a freezer, you could be killed and shoved in a freezer. You don't know what's going to happen when you go to try to look at this product. But Facebook...
shoved in the freezer.
Facebook Marketplace
I kind of wondered that too,
is a little bit better of an experience overall. At least I found it to be that way. And I think it's just probably because it's not the complete anonymity of a Craigslist.
the social graph will save you.
Not likely, but like I think there is that, it's not completely anonymous. I mean, because Craigslist a phone number, and you're like, really?
That's true.
That's all I've gotten here. I'm just gonna call some guy and be like, hey, where do you live? I'm interested in your freezer.
No, I totally agree. For groups, I see the sense in that, and almost in Facebook could be a set, like their group could be the group in their marketplace. You're talking about the local marketplace tied in with their group feature. If that could also be a separate product, and
Right,
not
like,
kind of
and by
tied into
groups, I mean, like,
the timeline of them tracking me everywhere and like or whatever it's saying. That also being a messaging platform where they have control over what the information that I'm seeing, looking at my timeline, and then
but that's what you have
ads
with
and everything like that. So
think of it from the group standpoint. Like they know I'm interested in these products because I've joined these groups that are about these products.
I would even go as far as say, like, if they had a separate product that was just tied to a local marketplace and a group feature, I'd pay a few bucks a month for that. Like we talked about before.
Right, but
if it was a good product, I'd have no problem with that.
Those wouldn't work as well because the benefit of it being marketplace is that it's Facebook marketplace and it instantly has the subscriber base they do. Doesn't matter that they're losing subscribers. It's way more than whatever ad you're getting for like this local app that lets you buy and exchange. It's like your yard sale app for your phone, and I forget this. Like there's one that I see ads for occasionally. I think it starts with an M or something. It's like, oh, here's where you can sell your stuff and
Mercury.
I guess something like that.
That's
right?
pretty good.
Is it?
I don't like that. It is actually a really nice app. I don't like the fact it doesn't have a web interface.
Oh,
that
so you
really
have to
bugs me.
install it, and you're totally against
it's a physical app.
apps, yeah.
It is slick. It is nice. I've actually bought and sold.
You just said it was a physical app.
Well, I think if it's a compiled app that I have to install on my phone, yes, it's a physical app on my phone.
It's not a web app.
Yeah, I know. But to me, actually, well, that's what I think. From a web perspective, I actually like because the web feels more, I don't know, it just feels more kind of loose or free in a sense.
Right.
While if you have an app that's stuck on your phone, you don't know what that app's doing to your phone behind the scenes.
Okay, we're going all off the rails this week.
I know.
I'm
not even getting to my org agenda list that I have set up.
The only reason you have show notes is because you want to use Emacs. But speaking of apps that do stuff, did you see? I just saw the headlines. I didn't dig into it much, but like the official Olympic app that you needed to have on your phone. The security analysts look at that and they're like, oh no, they're totally recording everything as soon as you install this app.
So I haven't. All the thing I've seen about the Olympics is that it's like a disaster when it comes to like TV ratings. Nobody's watching. Nobody's caring about it.
I mean, come on, guys.
Because it's also based in China and they're locking everything down. All right. So you saw this. So the official app that
you're
if you
supposed
want to follow
to
the Olympics.
Yeah. For like if you're a participant.
If you're a participant, okay.
Or I guess, or a ref, or like whatever, like a word, like you're supposed to install. This is my understanding. Okay. I'm building all this from headlines that I just read the first couple words and paragraphs of, and was
that's
like,
what we
okay.
do.
I mean, that's pretty much it. Yeah. So don't expect more from this show than that. But honestly, I would say that we're probably pretty much spot on as the people who actually read the whole article. Anyway, just gonna say, opinions on the internet wouldn't give them much credit either way. But that said, it looked like it was the official app that I think the intent was you're supposed to install this. Maybe you have to install it to get around and do things in the Olympic Village or something like that.
Yeah.
But security analysts that looked at it said, yeah, it is totally recording everything. Like it's recording
audio?
Yes,
it's
yes,
just recording everything
it's
you're
like
doing
you
around
just
you?
bugged yourself for the Chinese government.
Yeah, that's what happens.
It's like, really? I don't know.
Yeah, I
this was a good idea.
Yeah, I met up with yesterday after in between my classes, and I had an esports thing practice last night, and I met up with one of the advisors who helped me get over to Japan, and we were kind of reminiscing the fact of like there was one trip we had to connect in Beijing, and we had to have a little bit of a layover in the Beijing airport, and I totally saw the side of I wasn't able to venture outside the Beijing airport, but just the security and the way they treated us as these stupid American teachers and students, and went through our bags and harassed my students, and it was pretty serious. So
yeah, not a fun time. Yeah.
So I do have small aspirations. Like I said, I started with Japan. I would love to go to Korea. It's North Korea, North and South Korea. It would actually be kind of fun. I'm kind of a crazy person like that. I would actually go to North Korea if I had the opportunity. But then kind of work my way over to
you and Rodman. You could go together.
Yeah. And then, we have basketball in common. So, yeah, I love that.
There you go.
And then slowly kind of work my way over to Russia. My end goal is to get to Russia at some point.
Basketball in common. That's like me being like, me and Torvald. We both use Linux. Yeah,
It's true.
Yeah,
It's true.
we're both Linux users.
It's not a lie.
You
I would
Mark's a
love
Linux
to have a
user now.
basketball conversation with Rodman. That would be awesome. I loved when he played for the Pistons and went to the Lakers. I love that.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's get him on.
I'm sorry.
We'll
I'm
just
sorry. Not
invite
to
him.
wait. Whoa! Did I just went the Pistons Bulls? Yeah, he
I have
did
no
this
idea.
one. He
You're
looked at
talking to a
the
person who's
Lakers.
not going to call you out on any sports trivia.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he played with. Okay, I'm getting my mind. It's been a while, but since I thought about Dennis Rodman. But that's great.
Literally, one listener was like, "No, he's wrong. I know he's wrong. I'm going to say it in the There's no comments on this site anyway."
So anyway, I love traveling to crazy places, especially if if totally as a foreigner and if they put you through the ringer. I don't care about that. It's a cool experience. But yeah, I would like to visit some nice parts of China if you could. But yeah, going through there and seeing that, yeah, I totally saw the communist side, and that was not good.
Kind of scary, right?
Yeah, it is. But their machine learning intelligence they built into their keyboard interface system is pretty fascinating.
Okay.
I don't know. I shared this video with you because
posted a video that I totally didn't watch.
And usually we don't do this because we don't like to talk about stuff that we're going to talk about in depth before.
Oh, but you showed it beforehand. Yeah.
But I didn't know if you wanted some context of what it was. If you just want to brief, just like I did with your TED Talk, watch the first 2 minutes of it and then check out, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you do the same thing this video, but it's kind of fascinating.
Did not even watch it, but let me know. Let's
kind of learning how they in China and in Asia in general, they use the QWERTY keyboard just like we do, but then how do they translate that with their language? Because traditionally with Mandarin, with their it's a symbols based language with their Hanzi symbols, and how to translate that to a keyboard interface, because I think back in the 70s, where when computers were started to pick up speed and businesses were adopting them, they saw a big issue where the West was growing.
The 1970s were like a dawn of something, almost like the start of an epoch.
Well, I was born in 1977, so there was that. So
okay, all right, yeah.
But it was China saw that the West was becoming dominant in certain ways for technology because of the keyboard interface, just because people could easily start developing and start building technology with this platform, but they had a hard time translating or trying to figure out how they can take their symbol-based language to the QWERTY keyboard. So they developed this kind of this pinyin character system that kind of is meant to phonetically kind of replicate or kind of the Roman Latin alphabet, so they can kind of sound out using their own kind of simplified symbols, but sounds out kind of using phonetically the Latin Roman words to kind of provide translation to it. So you could use the QWERTY keyboard with that. But what that led into, which is the more fascinating part, they built in the 1980s, they started developing machine learning to do predictive type. So to assist anybody using a keyboard on their side, they would start typing out letters or words, and they would just do like an autocomplete. So they had autocomplete working way back when.
Because I'm guessing for them, autocomplete is like there's a couple keystrokes that then suggest this is the symbol I'm going
correct.
for.
Yes.
So it's like we would predictively complete a word. They're predictively completing a symbol based on the context of what you've typed before.
Yes. And they had this building out. Now it's actually gotten developed now because we know we were going back to how China's trying to track everything, because all communication within China is recorded, and they admit it. The fact of like you're talking on your cell phone or do a text message, send out an email, the government knows it, and the government's reading it, and they're using that information to build out their predictive engine, even further with AI, so that now it becomes even super more intelligent. So it is fascinating to say like they were doing it so long ago, like in the 80s.
That catches up with popular vernacular, even if you don't use it.
Yes.
Because like our phones will, as far as we know, will predict what we may have typed and kind of keep that. But we're hoping that they're not predicting to other people what we may have typed. But that's what you're saying. And
the closest equivalency is probably just like a Google search. Like if you start typing a couple words, it'll give you like an autocomplete with that to kind of say, okay, you're typing this, so you maybe are searching for this.
This is a good way to just question humanity in general.
Yes,
when you
but
just
they
start
had this
typing things into Google and see what it suggests.
Built into every kind of keyboard or even mobile interface now. It's just built into their technology over in China. Which is kind of
keyboard itself. And now it's okay because
the software behind the keyboard,
like you said.
Yeah.
Well, but did it go back to almost like the hardware level when we were talking more keyboards? Unless
I don't know. I just know that it's always been software, but they were like in the 80s when they developed the system and they first people started using it. I think it was always just software behind the hardware. but that just evolved now, which I think the software's more, I think it was more kind of localized. It was just using basically a dictionary in a sense.
Okay.
Like a localized app. And then once the internet took off, network, interfaces took off, and then we could have all these interfaces and cloud services all connected together within China and collecting that information. They could then build it out even more, which is kind of fascinating.
Now, did the I guess it was a kind of a documentary or show or whatever. Did it cover like how at a base level before the predictive side of it? How are they typing in characters in the keyboard? Is it like a Unicode type thing where you hit a control type key?
They would be typing out a combination,
couple combinations. Is that
yes,
how it goes?
With their Pinyin character system, it's basically using, a Roman letter alphabet to then help kind of forming letters to sound out parts of their language. So it'd be like a translation. So what they would be typing is just using the QWERTY keyboard, typing out Roman letters to form sounds phonetically to equate to words or symbols in their system.
Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's like you would type out because the pictorial would be
a character, symbol, symbol,
that is more of like a word, right?
It could be a word, it could be a feeling, it could be a place, it could be a lot of different things. That's also what makes it so complex.
But I mean, like also, in our language construct, it is like a thing. It's not like, what am I trying to say? Like we would type a word and we separate it by spaces.
Correct. And this is more. It could be an idea. It could be a lot of different things. That's why the symbol system is so complex, because there really isn't a rigid system that it follows, because all these symbols could be a variety of different things. They could be actions. They could be feelings.
A simplistic perspective, I'm saying like we would use the word house, which is created a couple letters right together, and in a pictorial language that's more like a symbol that represents a house. So it's almost like they're typing the word and it's auto completing the word, but there's not a word the way we think of words.
It's a symbol. Yeah, they're auto completing symbols.
It's a singular thing.
Yeah.
As they type it out. Okay, and it's not, because the symbols are so complex, it's not like you could just be like, well, it's this on top of this on top of this. Because there's so many symbols. You're typing like how you would say it, but you're seeing it how you would see it represented, which would be a single character. That's fascinating.
So, and then the documentary that I was watching about this was kind of went to the next steps. Like, okay, so if they're doing predictive type, then China could easily, and they are doing this already when it comes to like Taiwan, try for as a messaging system to, like we talked about how propaganda, or they're trying to control their messaging about the beliefs of the government and convey that down to the people. How the sim or when they're doing the predictive solutions for what they're typing, they could just start promoting other ideas within that.
Are they doing that? Because
I can't remember the
software comes from
no,
the
they
government?
are doing it. Yeah, when it comes to Taiwan, that's actually they've shown that, where it's like if they say like Taiwan is part of China, they'll add to that saying Taiwan was always a part of China.
Wow.
And they'll add phrases onto it to kind of almost like to emphasize it or to correct or to try to clarify from their perspective.
That's fascinating. I mean, terrifying.
Yeah.
Obviously totally doable and not surprising at the same time. But does that mean the software, I guess it's just so influenced. It's not like the government necessarily is writing the software, but those that are writing the software
AI. Yeah, it's
have to be approved by the government. The government says no.
It's all machine learning.
No one would ever say it would be always.
Yeah, it's all machine learning that's built, it's running basically on a configuration, but then it's just like any system. You could have developers saying, okay, if you're talking about a certain topic, lean it towards this. They're kind of yeah, it's kind of interesting. Just like Google does with their search results. The same thing. If Google wants to lead us towards something, based on what we're searching for, they could totally do that. They could limit certain websites that we see based in their search results and promote other ones. So
I was talking a similar concept to my wife the other day. Not from the, what do I want to say? Not from the active bias in adding that, like you're saying, like we're going to autocorrect the suggestion that Taiwan is part of China too always.
Yeah.
A concept.
And I'm saying always, that was kind of out of my mind. I couldn't remember the exact phrase, but it's kind of similar
right.
to
But
that.
like that idea
kind of
is
emphasizing
like you're
it more.
Yeah, you're going to say one thing, and we're going to say something that's going to make it stronger towards our opinion of this, or our perception of it. But even without inputting actual bias that way, just by the way that we use technology now, predictive text, the fact that we type with our thumbs, right? Like it has changed, I think, the way we communicate, whether we like it or not. It's changed the way we communicate. It's changed the words that we use because, hey, it's easier for me to type this with my two fingers than it would be to, like, I might normally say something to you.
Yeah.
But if I'm texting you, I may say it differently because it's easier for me to type with thumbs instead of typing in a keyboard.
Or even with the kids, just like taking a snap and then putting an emoji onto it. And that's all that they do.
Yeah, and then we reduce things to emojis, yeah, too. But still, like, we're changing the way that we communicate. We're using words differently, and then that's creeping back and then changing the way that we use words outside of the context of that technology, right? Yeah. It goes from if this is phrases that we pick up because they're quick things to express something in text, where it's harder to type because I'm using two thumbs instead of fingers on a keyboard, right? Mm-hmm. So I use this reductive language. Well, then that creeps back up into the spoken language. So machines are impacting us and are changing the way that we communicate person to person, just because they now exist as a channel that we use to communicate over.
Yeah.
Whether it's that inherent bias that you see, in apparently what's going on in the Chinese AI that's doing predictive text, or whether it's just not inherent bias, but just because we've injected this technology into the way that we communicate.
So it was kind of always fascinating to me learning about this, because it brought me back to experience I had when I went over to Japan. And because I was actually interesting to learn the fact that, like, when we went over there, we went over some schools, some technical schools, and saw their classroom, and seeing the students open up Visual Studio, program in C#, and just learning about their system of how they learn English side by side, very super early on in the school system. And for professional reasons, not only to become a developer, just to be, from a communication standpoint. And students are actually really, really super good, or Japanese students, at reading English. Speaking, it's another issue, which I could totally understand that. If I had to read Spanish, I could kind of get a feel for it. If I had to speak it, I'd be terrible. I wouldn't want to do that at all. So I totally understand that. It's easier.
I'm guessing reading and writing then too. Yeah. Especially if they're going into the development side, because are you saying...
They're coding they're coding just
English,
in normal English, which I had a conversation about that, because I was actually kind of interested to say how they translated, what they're doing, but they learned that from the start. So I just assumed that kind of other Asian companies, or not companies, but countries like China, were kind of doing something similar, that people just learn English if they were using QWERTY keyboard, and they're just kind of translating their mind to what they were doing. But it's totally different than China, which is kind of interesting. But
do they program that way?
That's interesting. The documentary didn't go into that, of how the programmers kind of do it, which that would be something. I think they did interview a tech guy who was talking about this Pinyin character system and how it's with the predictive type and how it's used to phonetically sound out and what they do with the keyboard. So I think they kind of are, but I think if you're writing code, I don't think the code symbols. So that's why I don't know if maybe doing a translation layer to English. I don't know, depending upon.
I mean, it could be.
But I didn't know that. It could be, because that's the way with Japan software. Yeah.
You can program in emojis, right?
You can now.
In some languages, right? Yeah. Just drop it as Unicode. So
my students got a kick out of that, seeing that in Replit. Kind of like, just put a little emoji and it kind of automatically displays it there. So
instead of like user, you're just like, let's call this, and then just put a user emoji.
So that was kind of interesting. I saw.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating.
The other thing that I learned about this week too, which this Wordling, Tim. How much Wordling have you done?
Well, honestly, I'm glad you brought that up, right? That is painful memory. I think last night, before I pillowed my head, I didn't realize I hadn't solved the Wordle for the day. So I think last night was the first time in a week and a half.
You are one of them. You are on the train of your streak, right? Try to keep your streak alive on your browser.
It was just like I did it every day because it was interesting. I mean, it's not a tough game, right? It's and the whole you only get one a day is kind of an interesting gratification thing. Honestly, since I broke the streak, I feel less
committed to it.
Desire to do it today. It's like it's a cool thing. It's one of those things too, where when you realize that, what was it? The New York Times paid, was it mid six figures?
I don't know them now. That's what I was going to talk about too, about how the developer and his background about how he developed, which I thought was actually more interesting than the actual game from a developer standpoint. But he sold to New York Times. What you would, so it was definitely $1 million or more than that. So
that's one of those things where you're like, I could have built that. Why didn't I build that? Why didn't I build something that the New York Times wanted to buy for all that money? Anyway,
So that is interesting. Where yeah, I've actually been avoiding it because I saw it in my Twitter feed the past 2 or 3 weeks.
well, that's the thing too, because everybody's like posting things and then posting things that mock it, and I was like, oh,
I hate viral games.
Okay.
Just to play a game because it's viral, just because to play something or to do something because everybody else is doing it. You know me. I like to fight against the system. I did it for show prep.
Is that it?
Because before I played it, you know me, I like to listen to my podcast. I'm not going to talk about the podcast. It was not PHP Ugly. It was another developer podcast I listened to, a front end developer podcast.
Yet you still mention.
Just to drive you crazy. That's all the reason.
Get other podcasts to mention us.
Just because I just want to drive you crazy and see your expression.
The marketing plan.
So I listened to the other podcast that was actually interviewing the developer. It kind of just popped in my feed. So I was curious. Okay, yeah, this is the game that I've been avoiding playing just because I hate seeing in my Twitter feed people posting their little images of the little kind of grid of how well they solved this puzzle. And I was like, really? All right. So I listened to this guy, and the guy has actually had an interesting kind of story. It's actually similar not similar to me, but he actually has an art background. He got his master's degree and his MFA in art, and that's kind of his thing. But he fell into getting a job at Reddit because he lived in the West Coast. That led him into getting a UI job for Pinterest. And then this was just a project.
I hate Pinterest, by the way, but keep going.
Okay, we can talk about that. That'd be kind of fun.
Do you hate Pinterest too? I hate Pinterest.
Well, I would love to talk about Pinterest. I don't really use it much anymore. I did use it a lot in the past for different things. But yeah, I don't really use it that much anymore. But yeah, that'd be something to talk about.
We can circle back to that.
He created this game for his wife because his wife loves word puzzles, and he was just his partner.
This sounds like a feel good story.
Yeah, no, it is. Actually, I like this developer. I do like him, and like what he was talking about. And he said, okay, I'm just gonna create this fun thing because coming out of working at Pinterest, he knew some pretty good UI tricks. He used web components. He talked about his process with that, learning web components and then using them to build this out. And then how he built out just to be a browser-based application. He never intended to go viral. He just intended to have a fun kind of app. He could kind of have on a URL that he could send to his partner to have her play and to just enjoy it, right? And then just to have something fun that they could do. And then it just kind of became a thing. I actually don't know where kind of how the social viral thing kind of happened with it.
Right.
Maybe just because it's just the network effect, and he built in the feature of sharing these little grid icons, and when you
that's a great little feature.
Yeah. But I also love the fact that he designed it totally local in the browser. He uses local storage. There's no back end to it.
Right. Well, where does the word of the day come from then?
I'm sorry.
Where does the word of the day come from?
It's an array. If you actually go into the code, you can actually get
code.
It's basically like a dictionary array that I think he said that he took a dictionary of like 600,000 words, got it down to around 200,000 based on only has to be a 5-letter word. And
so this thing's going to run out of words eventually.
Some filtering. Yes. And it was interesting too. He said that he's seen other clones of this, people who've just because you can actually go in the browser, get the code for it.
Yeah.
And then basically rip out the dictionary, put in your own dictionary. And then if you want to make this a word puzzle game about sports or about any other topic that you want, and you just as long as you have a dictionary that's running on basically the same array structure that he's using, it would work.
Just make it whatever, and it just looks at the day and then reduces that to an int and then checks the right array.
Yeah, it's basically the index. Yeah, the day references an index in the array, and that switches out the word.
That's super simple. I love
and
it.
everything's. I know that's why I was listening to Pox. I was like, I love this guy. It's kind of great, and he never did it to really make money. He was just doing it for something fun, to have an experience and to have something you could share with his partner. And then I guess it became a thing. And then he has 10 million people using it, I guess now.
Kind of 10 million people using it. But what do you mean is 10 million people went to a URL to download it locally to their device and run it on their own device.
Or runs it every day or accesses it every day.
Yeah, so he has see those. Yeah,
he has it distributed on a CDN. I think he uses Cloudflare. I think that's what he said he uses.
I can't see that it's that big.
And yeah, well, that was one thing because he found it. Once he realized that so many people were using it, he tried to get the file size down to so small for the download. So around like 200K or something like that. So it could kind of be manageable. Because if you had that many people doing it, even over CDN, the cost could start to get up there. I think he said his costs were around like $200 a month or something like that for for the host. But even for that many users, for only costing $200, that's kind of good. So
yeah. But like when you think of the scale then of the users, if you're just hosting like a little, basically a static web page that has JavaScript in it, and that's costing you $200 a month, that's a lot of users.
Yeah, and there's no login, there's no account, and that was
Right.
the way he wanted to build it. He wanted to build it in such a way that
That's
you know
great.
people there was no the low bar to entry, and you weren't asking anything of the user. You weren't showing them an ad that they had to look at. You weren't asking them to create an account. You weren't tracking them in any way. It was just an
No,
experience.
and it seems like the motivation is to make it for somebody that you care about. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Like that's a great that makes for good software.
And then he flipped it. Like you said, I didn't hear, he didn't mention the amount that he sold to New York Times for,
Yeah.
but then a New York Times approached him about it. And then I guess he was
course
like,
they
all
did.
right. It's like, yeah, this many users, this is starting to get a little stressful. Like managing all this by myself. Why not just flip it, make a couple $1 million off of it?
I wonder if they're gonna
that's
put it on.
that's what I worry about too, with the fact that like something like this, where it feels like it's so beautiful, they're just going to destroy it by number one. At some point, they're going to ask you to make an account.
Oh, no, that's totally gonna happen.
Link to your New York Times account, start working in some type of
maybe
ad into it. You're going to start seeing an ad somewhere around
You're
there.
going to see an ad. Almost guarantee you're going to see an ad. But I feel like, did you know the New York Times has their own game app, right?
I don't know that.
Okay, so the New York Times is known for the crossword puzzle.
Yes, I know that.
And you can get the crossword puzzle every day. There's even
that's what you're talking about. The game app is a crossword puzzle system.
The game app you can get the crossword puzzles, but if you subscribe to the New York Times games, you can get other games. They're all word-based games.
Okay.
And that's a higher, when you talk about like paid apps, and it's like a subscription, so it's not like we could go off on rants. I detest, like, if you're an app and I will pay you $10, but I will not continue to pay you little bits of money every once in a while because you made your game too hard to beat normally, and I need to buy the stupid upgrade to do it. Like, I want to give you the money to pay the game if your experience is good. I will just pay you for it. I don't want these stupid in-app purchases that you set up the whole game to make it so it makes it impossible for me to play unless I either like wait to build up. That's just I
was always fascinated by those types of games, and that would be something I would never want to make a game depending upon ads. But having like a microtransaction style game, like the way you're describing, actually, it's kind of interesting to me. I would actually think about doing something like that.
Like, I hate that idea that it's like I just want to pay you for the stupid game.
Well, you could do like a.
You want me to pay to continually play it, and I'm like, I'm not up for that.
Well, you could do like a little bundle package, buy like maybe 100 gems that would last you for a month, and pay for that, and then get you on.
I don't want that. Like, if you want me to pay, like if your game is worth it, that it should be a subscription. Cool, I'll pay you a subscription if it's worth it. If your game is worth it, that is a one-time purchase because it's just, you're gonna play it, then you're gonna get tired of it. Then I'll pay you the one-time purchase. But I don't like this. You can kind of play, but you can't really experience the full thing unless you buy stuff that is consumable, and you have no idea really how fast it's going to be consumed. And you also don't have any real idea is if that's going to allow you to kind of play through this section that we've made too hard, but then we're going to add a different thing, and now you don't need diamonds. Now you need, I don't know, stars. And you have to buy a different pack of those. And you're like, well, I still have 100 diamonds. Sorry, those are no longer useful. You need to now buy a package of. I hate everything about that.
Well, I totally understand it. Even though, honestly, it's totally evil. I totally admit it.
Yes,
but
it's
would
evil.
Be fun to do in a sense.
I mean, I'm not saying I don't understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
I completely understand what they're doing, just like I understand like the dark patterns on the web of how we convince you to say sign up for something you don't realize is a subscription because we don't tell you about that until later. And then we get a couple things in before you cancel it, and people are too lazy to go to their credit card company and get chargebacks. So look, we captured money. I get that. It's all sleazy and it works, but it's terrible. But
I totally
anyway,
agree that. Well, I totally 100% agree because that actually leads back to what I said. I hate these type of viral games that pop up in people's feeds. The last one I experienced, and that me and my wife kind of got burned out on, was Farmville.
Oh,
many years ago, back when Facebook was cool, and Facebook did the Flash games. What was the game company that did that? I forgot the name of them. Oh, Zing. It started with a Z.
Zynga, right?
Zynga, yeah. And so they were doing all these Flash games that you could run inside of Facebook, and then you could run them outside of that. I thought it was kind of cool. And then they got the mobile apps. Yeah, once you got on Facebook, you experienced the first time, and then they actually had the mobile app that you could actually do on your phone then. Yeah, my wife and I totally got hooked on that for a while, and then we totally got burnt out.
Didn't you have to buy farm things?
Well, if you wanted to, or you just kind of, the more time you put into it, it's kind of like you could kind of start try to generate enough money to do other stuff with. But it's like you constantly have to spend time on it, right?
What's the name of that? There's a title, a label for that type of game. I forget what it's called, but like where you actually have to be on it to wait for a clock, basically.
Yeah,
to do a thing. And if you're not playing the game, the clock's not running. Concept,
or the clock is like if you don't. Well, they had a nice hook where you take care of your. With you as a want to be a farmer, this is what you want to retire doing. Were you ever in the Farmville?
No,
because what you would do if you don't take care of your crops, Tim, they die the next day. You'll come back and all of your carrot crops will be dead, and you have to clear them out. You got to replant.
They're not real crops, thing,
right? But it felt like it.
It's like the little keychain Tamagotchi thing or whatever those were. Those were not actual pets.
But it made you feel like you were taking care of something.
Yeah, I know. You're taking care of the pockets of the people at Zynga. That's what you were taking care of.
That's true. Well, we didn't. I think we did spend. It wasn't that much money. We maybe both of us probably spent like $20, $30. We're like, okay, this is kind of crazy. This could lead down a dark path, and then we eventually both got off of that.
Right.
She got on the Candy Crush thing for a little bit.
Okay. But like here, if
that's a whole other issue.
Yeah, if there was Candy Crush was terrible for that. If there was like Sim Farm, and it was a good farming simulation, and it was enjoyable to play, I'll pay $30 for the thing.
True, and they do have
and if you have an update, I'll pay $30 for the update, and I have zero problem. Like I know there's a bunch of people like they don't, and I don't use Office, so I'm not in this group to begin with. But like the idea of it's going to be a subscription now instead of, and you can still buy Office, but you have to buy the upgrade, and it's like which is more affordable to buy the upgrades when they come out, or I like thinking I own the software, but a subscription they could take away anytime.
You don't own anything anymore, Tim. They don't want you to do that. You can't own it anymore.
Like, well, that's the thing. I don't mind the subscription model at all.
Yeah.
Like, I get the fact that we're delivering software in real time over the internet now. Yeah. So a subscription model makes more sense. Totally get that. Have no problem with that. I just don't like like you say, like the Candy Crush, like, buy this extra life because it's the only way you can pass this level. Because you can feel the game dynamic doing that to you. You can feel like, now we've made the games basically impossible to beat or very, very difficult to beat without this extra thing. So basically, it boils down to, if you want to enjoy the game, you have to pay for something that's kind of unknown as to whether or not you will continue to enjoy the game. I'm like, this is like the worst part of this is addiction. This is what I agree. This is.
No, it's totally dark, and even though I kind of get the idea from a developer standpoint.
Oh yeah,
also making money.
Pattern doesn't work.
These companies that do this make a lot of money.
I just
very
don't
easily.
Like this.
It's just like a stream of cash that just flows in every day. So that's very attractive that way. But yeah, I've never got to the point of actually, I would want to really put some time to it, because I know in the end I would hate myself for it. Even though I'd be making a lot of money, I'd be rich, I'd hate myself for it.
Yeah, you'd just be like, all the people that, it's
just like if I would have become a lawyer and made.
So that's the thing.
Thousands of dollars.
Why should you have been a lawyer, Mark? We haven't gone.
No, I'm not going to get into that. It goes back. No, it's actually my personal lawyer. The fact of like, okay,
you have a personal lawyer.
Well, okay, we dealt with a lot of stuff because of the house fire, the house rebuild. Right. And we're still dealing with some stuff with like our HOA and getting money back, because the HOA actually in the end controls the insurance, because we're in a stupid HOA and health prisons of that fact.
Yeah.
So getting reimbursed for certain things that we put money into to rebuild the house in order to get the house done, because the contractor would just let this drag out for years if they wanted to.
Right.
So that's a whole other issue. And then we were dealing with the lawyer to kind of try to deal with that. But also the fact of like, we're paying out a whole lot of money for the lawyer. Nothing's got accomplished. We're like, I could have just talked to their lawyer and got the exact same thing accomplished. And then hitting this wall of like, oh my God, this is just crazy. So anyway, I don't want to. Yes. And that's why I was the dawn of like, yeah, I could have made a ton of money becoming a lawyer because they charge for research. Remember, if you're doing consulting, contracting, we talked about this before. If we had to learn something new or kind of on a project, I'm not building the client for that.
Well, it depends.
I don't know. It's like if it's just like learning, if it's learning about their system, like if I'm going in and doing some development on the system, absolutely. But if I had to learn technology, let's say, I want to use this technology because I'm suggesting, just like the Lord suggests, you should go do this file this way with the cord or something like that. Like, but let me go research how to do that, or if that's the right thing for your scenario. That I'm like, whoa, we're paying you for your expertise. This is what you specialize in. You should kind of know. I understand if you need to learn more, like if you put research time to know about I don't know, the situation for us rebuilding,
like
what
the
was actually
specific situation, have to
specifics,
dig into
our
some
personal stuff. I totally
Right.
understand that.
Right.
But like researching the law, like that's kind of your thing, right? So like if I say, oh, I want to use Ruby on Rails for this project, but I'm going to
Right,
bill
you should
you
know-
to learn Ruby on
know
Rails.
Ruby's on what Rails then? Yeah, that would be.
It's
You know
like,
what would be great for this? This new Rails thing. Have you ever written in Ruby? No, not at all. Why?
but you're going to pay me for it and you're going to love it. It's going to solve your problem. It's going to make the perfect application, the perfect
Now,
system.
yes, I totally agree on that. Now, but it's like something is if somebody hires you for whatever your expertise is, and then gives you a problem where you're like, you know what, this might work, I'm not sure, and
Yeah.
you're upfront about it. They understand that. They're like, okay, I hired you because you're an expertise in this area, or maybe in the problem domain.
Yeah.
But now the solution side of it, how we're going to build it, well, there's these 3 different frameworks, none of which any of us have used. Then totally, yes, I'm billing you for the research to figure that problem out because you hired me because my expertise is not in the solution or the framework that we're going to use for the solution. My expertise is in the problem domain and how to solve that. So in those contexts, yes. But yeah, if you go into and you're like, hey, I'm a Rails developer, you don't know Rails. That's,
Or it's okay. And I've actually done this in my past too, because you know me, I like to jump from project to project and learn new thing while I do it.
A little bit,
I
yeah.
may go into it and just be mindful and say, okay, I kind of have an idea how long it would take me to kind of learn this. And it's fine. I do that. But at the same time, I don't build them for that time. I don't say like, I don't add
Right.
that onto my time for that. So it's like, or I go into the project thinking like, okay, I know the project's going to start in 2 or 3 weeks. I'll do some prep time before it, but I'm not going to build them for that prep time. You know, it's kind of
Right.
whatever. It's kind of,
Yeah.
Anyway, but I could have made, like I said, if I would become a lawyer, I would have made a ton of money doing research, which I love to do. I love to do research. You know, I'm sort of an academic, you know me. So I kind of, or maybe former academic soon. So I love doing research. But if I would become a lawyer, I would hate myself in the end because I hate all
Really?
lawyers now. So
Really? Does
Yeah.
anybody like? Anyway,
I don't know.
And it just surprised me because
Maybe
like,
maybe you like a
learned-
lawyer if a lawyer gets you out of jail, then I could totally understand liking a lawyer. So
You might like him then.
yeah,
Because what I'm understanding here is as an academic, you strive and you work really, really hard to be able to talk about all the classes that you don't teach, and
exactly.
and you now want to apply that to be a lawyer, which apparently is you learn what someone else learned and then you charge them for it or something like that. Am I?
Yes,
So
exactly.
okay. This is your career progression
that's
here.
the line. I don't
All right.
know. It's kind of
Yeah, that's what you aspire to be. Maybe you could be a teaching lawyer where you don't teach other people, but you charge them for the research they do.
I think that is a business. There are actually some lawyers
There.
who stopped being lawyers, but they made like online businesses to basically teach people to do either file stuff on their own legally or to teach other lawyers how to become lawyers. Yeah, that's a whole other side business. They
And
can do,
I have
so.
a high level of confidence that there are 0 lawyers that listen to this or watch this.
You know, maybe if we can
So-
eventually get our transcripts online, the lawyer that I'm using,
We'll see
hopefully
it.
for only more time to resolve what I'm dealing with. In the
Right.
future, they'll search for something about me, and this will come up in this conversation, in the
like-
transcripts. Yeah.
They'll be like, "Oh, he was really mad at us. We didn't realize that." This is
Yeah, when I
terrible."
got an email last night. Okay, we're talking away. I should not be talking about this stuff. But the fact of like, okay, I've been very specific because me and my wife are very cognizant of the fact of like we're realizing how much we spent already of like the lawyer fees. And like and this week when I talked, the lawyer called me on the phone last week, said, "Give me a call back." That's basically was his message. Like, and we were waiting for him just to confirm one thing and the other. All you
Can I
do
say
is
how
say-
much I hate that too? Because we
Yes.
have this whole system. It's called voicemail. And
Yes,
the idea
and
is
you
it
didn't
says
utilize the
You can
voicemail,
leave
yes.
a recording where you would express perhaps what it is that you need, so the person returning your call could get that in order first instead
Yes.
of calling you to find out what it is you need and then doing whatever it is you needed done and then calling you back again. That's the entire if you just wanted to call back,
So
just don't leave a message because we could see we missed a call from you.
I totally agree with
Anyway.
that. And that's what we were expecting because like we were being the past couple of weeks, being very prescriptive because we were saying, okay, we got to minimize the time. Because I talked to I talked to this guy for like 45 minutes because he suggested us to do something. So he'd explain to me what the route would be while also he said, okay, let me go back and research it some more after we get done with the call. But then I saw the bill for that conversation. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So like we had to stop this. So I've been very prescriptive in our emails, very short, succinct, basically bullet points saying, this is what we want to do, being very declarative about it. And then, so that started the thing of like, oh, well, let's talk about this next week. Let's talk, give me a call back so we can talk about this. I'm like, no, I told you what you need to do. So I emailed him back next week. I didn't call him back. I said, no, this is what we want to do. Basically just reiterating my list to say, just do this. And they said, okay, he gave me a call back, or no, he called me directly. Said, as soon as he read me email, he said, okay, Mark, I'm not going to bill you. I understand you're getting frustrated about the cost and everything. I totally understand. And he was wanting to have this phone conversation. It's like, okay, whatever. And then so we had the conversation, and then I was like, all right. So he asked me to like consider doing this. I talked with my wife about it. We're like, okay, let's sort of, but we really want to. This is what we want to propose to kind of resolve this. Or we were willing to kick this down the road a little bit more because we know we're in the right because of it's insurance money. They owe us insurance money. If they don't pay us, it's insurance fraud. So at some point we're going to get this money back. Just a matter of how the HOA wants us to sign over an agreement, and we don't want to sign the agreement because we're going to sign over certain rights and what we say was done well and what was not done well. So that's where it comes down to. So the fact of like like I said, I'm talking about way too much that I should be saying, but the fact of like I said,
this is therapy. Just like let it out.
True.
Let
You're
it
right.
out.
Because I got really upset last night. Okay, I'm trying to get to the
Yeah.
point where I got really upset last night, and so it was like I wrote him back an email after talking to my wife saying, yes, we will accept because they're actually willing to give us this money. Where it comes down to, they're willing to pay us the money, and we agreed on the amount. It's fine. Let's do it. But the thing is, they want us to sign this agreement
because they don't want you to come back and then ask for more money.
And there's this other issue regarding our deck that they paid for with the contractor. It's a whole mess. And we're saying there could be another legal issue down the road regarding house, especially if we want to sell our house. And we're like, okay, we want to just kind of keep our options open, but still just get our money back. So we're trying to walk this line with it. So I finally said, okay, wrote another email saying, okay, we're willing to do this. We're willing to this, but we're not willing to sign an agreement. Because honestly, they've had a history of paying us and reimbursing us in the past. And we just want to kind of continue that process on just like they've done in the past with us. And he gave me, what did happen last night at like 10 o'clock at night? Send me an email. Okay, Mark, I'm going to give you a call back tomorrow and discuss this. I was like, what? I almost lost my mind. I was like, and I read this right before I was like trying to like relax and then go to bed. I'm trying not to drink right before bed. I was trying to stay in a positive place. And then I was fuming. And even when I woke up this morning and my wife asked me about it, I was still fuming. And I was like, all right, I'm just like, he was like, she was just have him call me if he calls. I was like, all right, whatever. Cause I can't talk to him because I'm going to bite his head off. So
breathe in.
There you go. There you go.
Breathe
That's
in.
the world I've been living in.
Breathe out. Yeah. You should have been a lawyer. Should have been a lawyer because you could have done this on your own then.
So anyway, here, let's quickly, it's going to go on a positive note.
They don't say anything bad about people who represent
Stop
themselves.
talking about lawyers. Let's get off this. I can't do it anymore. But there's actually some positive thing that like I was feeling good going to the show because I actually want to talk to you about something.
But I've ruined it now because I brought up this.
We have about 8 minutes left.
I'm going to get a bad review in my Yelp.
So I have a situation
for my therapy sessions. Now.
True. We can't go over an hour because you won't allow me to go over an hour. So we're kind of you're like a good therapist who gets paid for the hour. It's like, no more time for you. Get out of the room.
That's right.
So I'm working. Okay, so I'm in a place. I have to do work on some projects. The art department website I'm getting bugged about, and I'm actually in a place now where I actually can start to work on these things because I got my propaganda app done for the art show. I got my smashes moving along at a good pace, and I got my schedule during the week is going pretty good. So I have a couple projects to work on, but I keep going back and forth about, hosting, like developing this. And my preference was going to be, okay, I love Firebase for their cloud hosting. That's what we use for the show website, use for a couple other websites too, just for hosting static websites. Totally love. It's totally easy. Do pushes to it through GitHub with the GitHub Actions, do the building. But then I've held back, even I've taken a close look at it and I've started to develop it on a couple of projects, really devoting to the Firebase system of like relying on their authentication, relying on their database, which I love, like the database structure, what they do. But then I've always been hesitant about developing something that's locked into that platform. You know what I mean? Even though they provide the solutions for you and you just kind of have to hook into it. But then your system, then whatever you're making is going to be tied to it. Just like I'm talking about developing the art department website. If I'm not here in a couple of years, I don't want to be bugged when I'm not working there anymore to maintain the website. So do I really want to make it dependent upon the system? And then what else? If I don't do it to that, what should I do?
Like how much convenience is there in what they're offering?
That's an interesting idea. Where like, are developing just using their system, how much are you saving time rather than just rolling your own API that's connected with your server-side application that could possibly,
But you're talking about tying it to Firebase's database.
Database and their authentication, pretty much just hosting them using them as a platform that for everything in the application, in a sense, for like file hosting, for database hosting, authentication, which I do like the convenience that they provide. And then what's
super convenient,
but then you are kind of locked into that. So I'm thinking about specifically for the art department website, because it's something that I may not be maintaining for the future. If it's my
Like,
own personal stuff, that's
you need
fine.
the
'cause I'm
login
gonna
for
make
that. Like are you creating something that people can actually
well,
log
it would be
into for
it
their
would be
site?
under my it would be kind of either create a new Google account that they could do, but just the fact
No,
of,
but I mean like. Are users going to be logging into the art department site? Is what I'm saying. Is
yes.
like okay.
That is the intention. Oh yeah, I should have preferenced that first, but I'm trying to rush now. We're coming up to the end of the hour.
No. Here's the thing. We'll always have next week, and we continue the conversation then.
But the way our show goes, Tim, we'll just move on, talk about something else.
No,
So.
sometimes we continue conversations.
All right. The way I want the website to work, because we want to take the website to more like less about content, about the program, about courses, stuff like that, because we're going to defer that to the college website. This is going to be more about hosting artwork, portfolios, galleries. So like
more of a marketing side of things for the art department, not these are the services we provide.
Correct. And more of like showing off what the students make, what the faculty make, the shows that are going on. Some more kind of content related to that, which I'm into. But the thing I'm trying to avoid, which I get bugged about each week or each month, is just doing content updates. So if there's a new art show or if there's new images, I'm the one that has to go and do it. Even though it's a WordPress site, I've showed other people how to do it. They're like, no, you're going to do it. So that's what that's your responsibility.
Yeah.
So my thing is I want to defer that responsibility to the users. So if the users want to add
a login where they can add their own content.
If a faculty member is having an art show, they can make a post about the art show, and then that could get on the theme of that.
But does that mean your thought is to leverage? How did this? I'm sorry, this has gone out of just therapy to now you're in the architectural
tech
consulting. Architectural consulting type of thing, and you're gonna have to book some time in a different place for this. I do 1 hour meetings.
It's going out of the scope of the session, right?
Yeah. This feels like a different job that I do. So Firebase does the authentication, all that stuff, but you'd still be storing the content
in their database.
Database, but you have to create a UI to store the content, right?
Correct. Yes, I would have to write
considered something like Contentful or Prismatic or one of those services?
I've used Prismatic for another site that's hosted on Firebase, but uses Prismatic because the client was comfortable with that. And he's more tech savvy, and he was kind of fine. But if I do
Prismatic
this,
take more? Is that too high of a bar?
It's just it's a totally different interface. Because my thought, if I'm going to do this right as for a user experience, especially for the art department, for these are artists, and these are the students, were like, I want to provide the same interface, just like it'd be kind of in line with, let's say they have the website, have a little login button, they could log in with their account, manage the profile. But then if they want to add a new post, they can add a new post and they immediately see it in the same page.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So
have more
like
kind of an inline experience with that.
Right. You don't go over to Prismatic and then add the post type there.
For some clients that are used to that type, especially for maybe for clients who are used to like a WordPress backend, going to Prismatic or Contentful is an easy transition. Yeah, it's totally easy. And for then hosting
Contentful, you could almost embed it though. I may be wrong there. Like I
haven't
thought you could
looked at
almost embed the editor. Well, what about Webflow?
Well, no. Okay. Well, that's a good question. I couldn't consider that. Yeah.
Here's some templates. Here's the styles. You can just add stuff to these pages.
Taken a look and see if like a multi-user configuration of that, saying, can I create like privileges and screens, profile screens. I haven't taken a close look at that, but also it goes back to think of you're developing on that platform that then somebody else would have to maintain. So that's what I'm trying to. Right now, it's a WordPress site, and anybody can maintain a WordPress site.
Yes, well, but still, you're developing on a platform that is a word. You're like you say, it's a WordPress site, but there's what I want to say. It's still something that someone then has to manage, and you are tied to how that works. Now, you may not be tied to a service like Firebase, but you're tied to the concept of LAMP style hosting. Yeah. And to me, the thing that's appealing of like a Contentful or a Prismatic is the fact that
if you had to pick between the two, which one would you pick?
Between like Firebase and
between
a CMS?
Contentful.
I don't know. I've not done enough between the
I haven't
two
used
of them
anything
to know.
Yeah, I've only used Prismatic, so that's why I have no context for Contentful.
So I don't know which one I pick, but like that to me is more appealing than Firebase, because Firebase, you are just tying them to a specific kind of hosting, but still the whole management is all your code, which is also tied to that hosting. If you say, hey, we're tied to Prismatic, that is, we didn't have to have code tied to that. It's just all over there. To me, that it seems better to tie it to something like that, because you're not taking both your code that somebody has to manage that is not managed by anybody else and saying you're forced to use the service. You're just saying the code in everything is contentful, or the code in everything is prismatic, and the site is just basically static that pulls that data in.
Well, Tim, that was really great information. I'm sure it's very useful for our listeners, but for me, it didn't help me at all. So you will get paid for the session.
You're gonna leave a bad Yelp review, huh? Hey, I want to say we have no time left, but you were mentioning Zynga and Farmville.
Yeah.
You know where one of the code founders went?
No,
That's the guy who built Gala, the cryptocurrency gaming platform.
Oh yeah. That's cool.
And we probably won't talk about that next week.